You're listening to The Score, a podcast for Valley sports enthusiasts.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to The Score podcast. My name is Dana Balash, and we are happy to be joined by the Most Reverend Bishop David J. Bonnar on this edition of the Score podcast, as we'll talk sports in the next several minutes. And Bishop, thanks for joining us today.
It's my honor, Dana.
You are a true sports fan, aren't you?
I grew up in a family where both my mom and dad, they really engendered this fanatical sense about following sports. None of us really went on to become athletes, but we really were great at supporting the Pirates, the Penguins, the Steelers. We even watched studio wrestling.
You grew up in the Pittsburgh area. So what is your favorite sport?
Well, you know, for the 12 years that I was chaplain for the Pittsburgh Steelers and got to go to 2 Super Bowls, I would say football was my favorite sport. But as a kid, and now that I'm removed from being the chaplain and being in the football world, I really love baseball. And to this day, I have a 20-game season ticket plan. I don't make all 20 games. I end up giving the tickets away. But I enjoy going to those businessman specials, 12:35 games in the day, and I know the Pirates have been struggling as of late, but part of being a fan is knowing that there's always next year, there's always tomorrow. So
how has sports helped you in your call to religious life?
Well, I think sports is a microcosm of life because there's winning, there's losing, there's adversity, there's the need for teamwork, there's always the need to be coached and to learn and to grow. There's the whole idea of discipline and practicing and keeping at it. So I think all of those factors come into play, and I think that's what we all live with, even though we don't walk around with uniforms with numbers and names on our back. I mean, we're all competitors and we're all trying to do our best and to excel at what we are called to do.
As growing up, you saw some great teams, not only with the Pirates, you mentioned the Super Bowls with the Steelers, but the Pittsburgh Penguins as well.
Yes, I mean, Pittsburgh, the city of champions. Not, as of late, but I still remember when the Steelers, and that was a severe drought for many, many years. I didn't even realize it then because I was so young, but when the Steelers won their first Super Bowl, my mom, she bought this big bass drum at a flea market, and she decorated it. And when the game was over, we had like a spontaneous block party. We had a parade, and my mom was there beating the drum. Here we go, Steelers! Here we go. So it was not just the Steelers, but I mean it was the Pirates. I remember, my Aunt Rita was a political official, and her closest friend was Sophie Masloff, who went on to become the mayor of Pittsburgh. And Sophie would get tickets. She was on the Stadium Authority. She was involved with the University of Pittsburgh. So I got to go to see Dan Marino play. I got to go to Three Rivers Stadium to see the Steelers, the Pirates, and so we really soaked it up. And then the Penguins. Wow, I mean they came out of just nowhere, and Mary Lemieux, what a tremendous story. So I even got a ticket. True confessions. I was a young priest then in Newcastle, and I was coming back from having dinner with friends in Sharon, and I wanted to get back in time to see the Stanley Cup playoffs. And little did I know, I see this siren coming, stopping me, and I was going about 70 miles an hour in a 55. The funny thing is, I said to the officer, and I wasn't even dressed like a priest, I said, this has never happened to me before. He said, where are you from? I said, I'm from Newcastle. He said, do you know Father Charles? I said, yeah. I said, I live with him. He said, I stopped him last week.
Those were great days for you. I mean, growing up as a kid, going to Three Rivers Stadium, what did that kind of mean to you?
Well, I'll tell you what. I just felt like I was at Disneyland every day. I mean, I really was on the threshold of so many great moments, and even lived off them because my mom and dad were at the World Series when Bill Mazeroski hit the home run. I mean, and that was something that they never stopped talking about. So sports has always just been, a key part of our family lives. Even to this day, my siblings, I have 2 brothers and 2 sisters. Usually when the Kentucky Derby comes, and none of us have been to the Kentucky Derby, but we just, for fun, pick names out of a hat and, see who wins. Whoever wins, we get a little present.
What is there a game that you went to that stands out growing up, going to Three Rivers, either for the Pirates or the Steelers?
Well, I'm 63 years old, so the memory isn't what it used to be. I just think every game, though, was memorable. I mean, I just felt so humbled and just so honored to be there. I know, one of the last playoff games that the Pirates had that they won, I was at that game at PNC Park with my brother and my sister. And it was just very surreal because, we would just be watching in our living room these moments, but there we were in person seeing the Pirates win.
I mean, you're a sports fan all in all. Will you watch all sports?
I do. I enjoy watching golf. I enjoy watching soccer. I've gotten into soccer, as of late. I mean, that's a grueling sport, but I mean, I really respect the athletes in that. I enjoy soccer. I've watched volleyball, men's and women's volleyball. When the Olympics come, I enjoy watching all those sports. I mean, I am a sports junkie. So if I'm home, that's probably all I watch is sports, or I listen to music.
Growing up, was sports part of your life? Did you want to do something in sports until you got your call?
I wanted to be you. I wanted to be you. I didn't know you, but I wanted to be you. I wanted to be a sports anchor or even a news anchor. I wanted to be an announcer. My brother taught me this game called dice baseball, where you with the dice you have a draft with the teams and you play just by the dice, and if you get 12, that's a grand slam. And I used to keep statistics of all of that. So I wanted to be an announcer, and it's funny when I go into parishes, I'll have people come up to me and say, boy, you should have been an announcer, I mean, so, and even in our backyard, we had a fenced-in backyard, and my brothers and I, when we would play wiffle ball, from time to time, I would just announce our actions, our games, So I find that, I think that's one of the greatest jobs in the world, to tell the story of what's happening. And I get to do that in a different way as a bishop.
In your position now as a bishop and running the Diocese of Youngstown, do you have time to watch a lot of sports? I mean, Sunday's a busy day, Saturdays are busy?
Yeah, I don't have the time that I used to have. I mean, Sundays are rough. I mean, being a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, and forgive me for that, for those of you who are Cleveland Browns fans or San Francisco 49er fans in this part of the world, it's just hard on Sundays. So, and we're not in the market here. I mean, this is not the Pittsburgh market. Right. So there are times when the Cleveland Browns are on instead of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And so, and I've learned to live with that and accept that because, I don't live in Pittsburgh anymore. Sure. I mean, you can take the guy out of Pittsburgh, but you can't take the Pittsburgh out of the guy.
You were the chaplain for 12 years. Kind of tell us how that evolved and how you became the chaplain of the Steelers, because for most priests, I'm sure that if you're a sports fan, you're in heaven.
Amen. I always tell the men that I talk to about the priesthood, I never would have been chaplain for the Steelers or gotten to be as close to the Steelers had I not been a priest. So I went to Seton LaSalle High School in the South Hills of Pittsburgh, and one of my classmates was Jim Sweeney. Jim Sweeney was an offensive lineman. He went on to the University of Pittsburgh, and he was drafted by the New York Jets in, I think, the second or third round. He played there for a good number of years, and then, when this whole reality of free agency emerged, he went on to the Seattle Seahawks for a year, and then he had the opportunity to come home to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I remember I was a young priest in my third assignment as an assistant, and I remember him calling me saying, "Hey, Dave, what do you do on Saturday nights?" And I said, "Well, Jim, I'm in a big parish with 2 other priests, so every third Saturday night I have Mass in the parish." He said, "Well, how would you like to have Mass for the Steelers?" He said, "They don't do that here, and I really would like us to do that." I said, "Absolutely." So I was like a little kid at Christmas. That first time we would go to the Hilton. The night before they had to report, and we would have this 30-minute mass. And I will never forget my first mass, because we got to the point where, you ask the guy, so whom should we pray for? And I remember Jim Sweeney saying, ever since I was a little boy growing up, my parents always taught me to pray for our opponent. So I'd like to pray for the Dallas Cowboys. So we prayed for the Dallas Cowboys. The next day, the Dallas Cowboys trounced the Pittsburgh Steelers. So they were home again the following week, and so we came to that point where, okay, guys, whom should we pray for this week? And Mike Tomczak, who I know lives in the area here, Mike Tomczak, he was a quarterback for the Steelers at that time. He said, I'd like to suggest that we not pray for our opponent. And sure enough, the next day, the Steelers beat the then Washington Redskins. So, but that was a wonderful experience, and even my dad got to share in that, as I could take him to some of those masses, meeting the Rooneys and the coaches and some of the players that were Catholic.
What other duties does a chaplain kind of do with an NFL team?
So I think it depends on the team itself, but the expectations for me were simply that I would go and have the mass before the night before the game. Now I understand they do it on the in the stadium on the day of the game. I did travel. I got to go to one away game, every year, and then I got to go to 2 Super Bowls. And the beauty of that was celebrating mass for the Catholic coaches and players the night before in a different location from where they were staying, and then the day after, both days after, and this was in Detroit and then in Tampa, I got to have mass in the suite for Mr. and Mrs. Rooney. And it was a real mass of Thanksgiving, because in both instances they won.
You have a relationship with, or you had a relationship with the Rooneys, correct?
Oh yes. I mean, I'll tell you, I really appreciated Mr. Dan Rooney and his wife Pat. I mean, they were lovely. They were always there at mass, and I'll never forget, after they won the first Super Bowl, I was a pastor then. I was just sitting there at my desk, and this package came in the mail. And lo and behold, it was a Super Bowl watch with a beautiful note, which I have framed, handwritten by Mr. Rooney, thanking me for, being part of the year, part of the experience. And then it was replicated again when they won in Tampa. So I have 2 Super Bowl watches, which I just feel so honored to have. I was never one for rings. I never thought I'd wear this ring, an Episcopal ring, but truly, truly humbling, grateful for it.
Did you get to know any of the players personally?
I did. One of my, there were a handful of guys that were very devout, and one of the guys that I got to know real well was Mark Bruner, the tight end. Yeah. And Mark, his son has since been drafted by the Steelers. Mark is a scout for the Steelers. I have not been in touch with Mark, but at the time when I first began, I was the director of vocations for the Diocese of Pittsburgh, and so I had to recruit men for the priesthood. And I had asked Mark Bruner at the time if he would come into all the Catholic high schools with me and tell his story and help me to promote priesthood. And sure enough, he did. And he really was just so humble, so genuine, a really, really good guy. But I really got to know him. Mike Vrabel, who's now the coach of the Patriots. I mean, he would come to Mass. Just really good men, simple men.
Try to keep in touch with these guys? I know they're busy with other things. Have you tried that, or?
It's hard. It's been probably 14, 15 years since I've done that. The only one I really kept in touch with was Jim, and then Jim unexpectedly died. And that was tragic. He had another lineman that was on the team at the time called Milo, Tom Myslinski, and he's up in New York somewhere, and he's a good guy. And then I met a guy who's living in Canton who used to play for the Steelers, Roger Duffy. Roger Duffy. So it's a small world.
Situated here in Youngstown, we're an hour from Cleveland, an hour from Pittsburgh, an hour from the Hall of Fame. It doesn't get much better than that.
It doesn't, I'll tell you. And the Hall of Fame is a great place. I remember, in my first Mass, one of my first Masses down there at St. Michael's in Canton, the Hall of Fame people gave me a football, a Hall of Fame football, which is in the archives of the diocese now. So very, very touched by that.
The last Steeler game you went to in person, how long ago?
Gosh, I would say it's been a long time. I can't remember.
The last Browns game you went to?
Well, I'll tell you, I was at the game when it was a Monday night game when the news broke that the Browns had to leave Cleveland.
Yep.
And I remember there were 4 busloads of Cleveland Browns fans. And you know, when those people got off the buses, all of us Pittsburgh fans applauded them. Because what happened to them could have happened to us.
Sure.
And there was real empathy for what was going on there, and just real sadness for them. I mean, it's one of the unfortunate realities of sports. It's a business.
Mike Tomlin's been there for almost 20 years. Never's had a losing season, but still hasn't, you know, it's been, what, 7, 8 years since they've won that playoff game. Your thoughts on him?
Mike Tomlin is a good man. He's a man of character and principle. And, you know, I think the players love him. They love playing for him. Sports is hard. Winning is hard. And, you know, you can have the best chemistry. You can have the best talent. But, you know, I think Chuck Noll used to say on any given Sunday, anything can happen, you know. So Chuck Noll also used to say that if you're thinking about retirement, it's time to retire.
Sure. You know, you were within the Steelers organization with the Rooney family. I mean, they've had 3 head coaches in 35 years. What makes that organization so good from that standpoint?
Well, I think it's stability, and a stability rooted in a committed vision, and that has been sustained throughout the years. You know, so I think that, and you know, they've had a lot of good people working for them. I mean, Omar Khan, who is the general manager now, Omar was my parishioner. In fact, when I was the chaplain, Omar was my contact person. And I certainly haven't bothered him, you know, since he got the position. But, you know, he is a good man. You know, I just, but it's hard. It's hard to win.
It is. Your favorite Steeler, not to put you on the spot, do you have a favorite who stands out?
You know, I liked Rocky Blyer. Rocky was a parishioner of mine too when I was in Pittsburgh. You know, I've never been one to single-handedly focus on one guy. I mean, I've always looked at it as a team. You know, people working together. I mean, I've admired the efforts of individual players, but at the end of the day, it's a team sport.
Favorite coach?
Chuck Noll. He had a saying, you know, whatever it takes. And I go back to that every day as a bishop, you know, whatever it takes. There's things that are asked of us that seem so impossible or so difficult. But, you know, if you want to do your best, if you want to have a positive result, you got to do whatever it takes.
So you're a diehard Steeler fan.
Diehard.
So Steelers are in a game. They're trailing. They need the game to win. You know, they show the crowd and people are praying. Do you pray? I mean, everyone does, I guess, but, you know.
I pray, but not like that.
Okay.
I mean, I think that, you know, I think God has a sense of humor. I mean, God's probably a Steeler fan, but no, I think that God probably looks at all of this and just smiles. You know, it's a great thing. It can be a difficult thing though too. You know, especially for teams that struggle and for players that go through adversity. But I don't pray like that because it doesn't.
I mean, I guess the question does, you know, you see people, you know, I remember Game 7 of the Guardians and Chicago Cubs. You know, the Indians needed a couple of runs. I mean, it's just a human nature factor where you see people in deep thought, eyes closed, and you know, you just think, is God watching? Is He seeing this?
Well, you know, my prayer has always been, you know, when I was the chaplain, and even I remember praying before the Super Bowls, has always been that, you know, the players do their best and let God do the rest. Right. And, you know, whatever happens, happens. I mean, it's a game. And now it's even more than a game, it's a business. And that's something that it doesn't, really always sit well with me, that it's become so.
Is it fun for you to watch pro sports because it is now becoming more of a business, even college football? Is it?
Yeah, I'm disappointed in the college story, what's transpired there. It's hard. I mean, it is harder for me to be as diehard as I was as a kid because I know more. I see more. I just remember, before when I was a young seminarian in Rome, the bishop at the time took all of us seminarians out to lunch, and he said, we don't send you here for the education. It's probably better in the States. He said, but we send you here to Rome to be at the center of Christendom in the shadow of the Dome of St. Peter. And he said, let me tell you something. He said, the closer you are to the church, the more faith you're going to need, because you're going to see it in its most human form. And so, paralleling that to sports, I got a bird's eye view of sports, of football, of being, with the Steelers, and that's opened my eyes on so many other levels, just to the whole business sense. And when you hear the story of guys holding out for millions and millions of dollars when there's people struggling to put food on the table, it's a disconnect for me. I know it's the United States. I know that people want to get the most of what they can get, but how much is enough at the end of the day?
Sure.
And I think one of the downsides of this is that I think people look at sports as kind of like the answer to everything. I mean, for their child. If my child gets to be a professional athlete, everything's going to be okay. But everybody's life has the cross.
If you had the power to change one thing in pro sports, no matter what the sport, what would it be?
Oh boy, I think it would be to just try and make it less about the money and more about the experience. I think the money has eclipsed what the experience is, and it's individualized it so that some players are getting more. I was just thinking the other day, because I follow the Pirates devoutly, and there's guys that come up, there's guys that come down, they get DFA'd, taken off the 40-man roster, and I'm just thinking, we've seen the videos of the guys who get called up to the big leagues, but hearing from the general manager or the coach, we're cutting you today and we're DFA'ing you. You're no longer on the 40-man roster.
Exactly.
That has to be so devastating, heartbreaking.
Terry Francona, who managed the Guardians for a long time, said that's the most difficult part of the job, to tell someone, you're not needed here, but there's always a chance to come back. And I think that really hits home with a lot of players, because that is a difficult thing to do, especially at training or at spring training, when you have to get down to 40-man or 25 on the travel roster and so on and so forth. I think that is difficult. Pirates, favorite Pirate? Does a favorite Pirate stand out for you?
I think Roberto Clemente.
Yeah.
I think his record speaks for itself, and he showed up. A basket catch he would make, it was just so graceful.
Who is the most prominent sports figure you have met in person?
Well, I know, Rocky Blyer. I met Roger Goodell.
Oh, okay.
At one of the Steeler games. I think it was a Super Bowl. I got to meet him. So I got to shake Al Michaels' hand at Candlestick Park. I remember going out there with the team for a Monday night game, and I was in the suite, and we're walking out, and he was walking out of his suite from doing the game, and shook his hand. So
during the game, were you on the field as the chaplain? Were you up?
No, I was just up in the suite usually.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you didn't have to have the adverse conditions. You mentioned some places, different. How many different stadiums, football-wise or baseball-wise, have you been to?
Baseball I've been to Camden Yards. I've been to, I was at the old Metrodome.
Yeah.
I've been to the White Sox Park. I've been to, of course, PNC Park. Been to Cleveland. I've been to Detroit. In football, I've been to Tampa. I've been to, of course, the Ford Field for the Super Bowl. I've been to Kansas City. I've been to Tennessee. I've been to Candlestick. I've been to Arizona. I wasn't Chaplain yet. I was just a young priest. I went to the Steelers Super Bowl when they played the Dallas Cowboys, and they lost at, I think it was at Sun Devil Stadium.
It was at Sun Devil Stadium, 1995. Yes,
Yeah.
I was at that game.
Oh, you were? Okay.
And I was at the Super Bowl in Detroit as well.
Do you remember it snowing the night before?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we actually went up that night before because we were going to leave Sunday to go up.
Okay.
You know, just that experience, did it maybe shine a different light on sports for you?
Yeah, it's as a kid, it's like, wow, and then you get close to it and you see the bigger picture. You see, the good, the bad, the ugly, and it's a reality check. But I'm still grateful for it. I mean, It wasn't bad. I mean, it made me a better priest, a better person. I mean, I'm so grateful for that opportunity.
Sure. Golf. Let's talk golf a little bit. You play golf.
Not enough. I need to work it more into my schedule.
How do you kind of fit that into what you do?
Well, it's you always got to be thinking ahead, and you always got to be praying for good weather.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy golfing when it's hot. We've had some hot days in these weeks.
Sure.
I just feel looser, more limber, so to speak. So it's just, you got to be intentional about it. My best golf was during the pandemic. You know why? Because I didn't have any worries or concerns. You just woke up, you kind of isolated. I mean, you could go golfing, but I mean, that was my best golf. I mean, I got into the 80s, the high 80s, and I was consistent there for a while. But then, I got the yips with the putting. I mean, if I could putt, I could certainly be a much better golfer. I mean, I just can't putt.
Where do you like to play?
Anywhere where the grass is green and where there's 18 holes. But I mean, I have to say, this part of the Lord's Vineyard, it's beautiful for golf. You got the country clubs that are here, but you also have Firestone Farms,
Sure.
Kensington, Pine Lakes, which is not too far. I mean, I know it's not a country club, but I've played there a handful of times. I have a course right across the street from me, Stambaugh golf course. I kind of call it my country club, But I look out there, and every day I just I think about golf.
People have said they've seen you walk. I mean, you try to stay physically fit and kind of do your sports within that realm.
I
right?
do. For many, many years I was a runner, and I would run, anywhere from 3 to 5 miles a day, 5 times a week. And then, when I got into my 50s, I was starting to feel it in my back, and my doctor said, you really need to stop running. Well, I continued to run for a few more years, and then I finally came to my senses. So now I walk. I walk anywhere from 4 to 6 miles a day.
Wow.
in my neighborhood. Before I became a bishop, I would bike. I have a bike, and I just got it all tuned up last year. And I would ride the trails, the beautiful trails in Pittsburgh, and I know there's beautiful trails here. I just have not had the time to go biking because you've got to put your bike in your car, drive to the place, and then drive back. I also, in my house, in the winter months, I have an elliptical machine and a treadmill, and I rely upon those. But, motion is lotion. You got to keep moving, and I love to be outdoors. I love the sun. And I love to just keep moving.
If you had a kind of a crystal ball, what would be your perfect day?
Well, my perfect day would be to wake up from a good night of sleep and, have a nice cup of coffee, say my prayers, celebrate Mass, maybe go take a walk, come back and shower. And then I like to write, maybe do some writing, and then go play 18 holes of golf, and then have a nice dinner.
Where is sports heading, pro sports heading, you think?
As much as I love sports, I don't like where sports is going, because I think sports has become the new religion. It's the new God. And it concerns me. I mean, I think it's good to be a fan, but, I think Sundays, it certainly has won over Sundays as opposed to the Lord's Day. And that really concerns me. So I have a tug of war within myself, a lot of times, because I love sports, but I also love the Lord. And I think you can love them both, but it's kind of imbalanced right now, and that concerns me.
It appears the NFL has owned Sundays, and the Super Bowl is played on Sunday, and I know there's been some talk of maybe moving the Super Bowl to a Saturday, which in my opinion makes sense because the Super Bowl comes on late, people don't go to work on Monday, especially in those cities where the teams are playing. That would make sense in my opinion to have the Super Bowl on Sunday. But are we oversaturated with sports maybe on Sunday?
I think we are, and I think one of the factors in this that we can't dismiss is just, you can turn on your TV and you can have your pick, whatever you want to watch. And so, I mean, yeah, I think sports is saturated, but I think the whole media piece of it is saturated, and there's money in both, and the money is a driving force, but hopefully not at the expense of God.
Sure. College basketball, the NCAA tournament wants to expand to maybe 76 teams. Good idea, bad idea?
I think it's a good idea. I mean, I'm not a big basketball guy because I grew up in a city where we didn't have a professional team. However, I've been to 2 Cavs games, and what a great experience that is. I mean, it's a real entertaining experience. They won both games, and so I'm a Cleveland Cavs fan, and I'm proud of it.
We know you're a Pittsburgh guy, but you do go to Cleveland to watch games. You go to see the Guardians.
Yes.
And so on and so forth.
Beautiful stadium, the stadium there. I don't even know what the name of it is, but what is
Huntington Bank Stadium.
Huntington Bank.
Or no, Progressive for the Guardians. Yes.
Okay. I mean, it's a beautiful stadium. I'm partial to PNC Park.
Sure.
I think that's one of the most beautiful parks in all of baseball. But I would put Cleveland in the top 5, and the people there are very welcoming, hospitable, and I root for the Guardians. I mean, I really do. I watch them occasionally, so I mean they've been more appealing as of late, in the last few years than the Pirates.
What is the issue with the Pirates, you think?
Well, I don't know if there's enough time to go into that, but no, I just think it's hard for me to say. I mean, let me tell you something. Leadership is tough, and who am I to judge?
Sure.
And everybody thinks it's Bob Nutting. I mean, I don't know if it really is. I think there's so many factors that go into play: scouting, coaching, talent. And I just don't know if they've been able to assemble, just get it all on the same page. I do feel excited. I mean, I look at the minor leagues all the time. I'm always checking what's happening in Indianapolis and Altoona, their farm teams. I think there's hope. I mean, that's why I keep buying my tickets. I'm there's always next year. So
the year you don't buy them is the year.
I know. That's what I'm afraid of. I mean, I have high hopes, and I still think. I think they're a couple of trades away from being really competitive.
Paul Skeens, will he be in a Pirate uniform 2 years from now?
I think so. I mean, I don't think there's enough talent to match what he's worth. I think it wouldn't be a good deal.
I think one of the other issues, Bishop, and Cleveland has gotten over the hump on this, is you're talking a medium market team, going against the New Yorks, the Los Angeleses, the Bostons, the Chicagos. Cleveland, I mean, I think it all came together with Terry Francona being the manager. Things kind of worked out. 2016, they go to the World Series. They haven't won it. Pittsburgh was in the playoffs in 2013, 2011. So they were near there, and then things kind of went south a little bit. But I think you're right. I think, you have to have a little luck. And I think the Guardians have kind of proven that this year, where Stephen Vogt, a first-time manager, pushed all the right buttons a year ago. This year, they're 9-10 games out of first place, but in that wild card hunt. So I think you have to have a little luck and probably prayer, right?
Luck and prayer, absolutely.
As we wrap things up, what would you like to see down the road? What's your vision for sports, maybe at the collegiate level, with the NIL and this transfer portal and so on and so forth?
Well, I hope they're able to step back and reset. I think that when you go to college, you go there to learn. It's not, I don't think it's meant to be, maybe I'm old school, but I don't think it's meant to be a place of employment for a student.
Sure.
I think, you know, when we push aside education in favor of something else, that doesn't bode well for the community or for the long range picture. So I hope that they can fix that, because I think they've found that it's probably not the right way to go. So that's what I hope happens, and I hope that baseball, and I know this is like a pipe dream, and talk about praying, I pray for this. I pray that baseball finds a way to develop parity, whether it's through a salary cap or some type of mechanism that's going to give every team that goes onto the field to play a chance.
We know you bleed black and gold, right? For
Yes.
all three teams.
Yes.
Before Pittsburgh Penguins, anyone you're close to there? I mean, I know you kind of grew up there and watched that.
Well, you know, there was a guy by the name of Pierre LaRouche who was a parishioner of mine, and I got to know him. And I actually got to go to a game in the box, in Mario's box.
Wow.
I don't think Mario was there that day, but I mean, he took two of us priests to a game. It was phenomenal.
So you had Steelers, Penguins, some Pirates in your congregation. So, you know, after you saw them at Mass, you kind of say, hey, tickets my way, any? You know, did you kind of...
I didn't have any Pirates, but my last assignment, which was just 6 months, Neil Walker's dad belonged there.
Yeah.
And I had a conversation with him. He was there for an event, and I had a really good conversation with him. And, you know, he's since died, but he was a really good man.
So, the Browns have struggled. They're talking about building a new stadium. They've never had a playoff game in their current stadium. Can you help us out a little bit with the Browns?
I wish all the best for the Browns. I really do. I think the stadium deal is going to happen from what my intel tells me. I mean, I've talked to some lawmakers, and I think that it is going to happen. And you know, I feel bad for the city proper. I mean, because, you know, that's one of the sad realities of our time, that people are abandoning the cities. But I certainly wish Cleveland all the best, except when they play the Steelers.
How many times do you hear that?
You know, everywhere I go, almost inevitably, somebody will say, hey, Bishop, are you a Browns fan yet? I said, no. I said, but every day I pray for your conversion. They're spiritual conversion, but they're football Steeler conversion.
5 years now as the bishop. It's hard to believe, isn't it?
It truly is. It's been a great ride so far, and, you know, every day has its challenges. It's just like sports, you know. There's good days, there's tough days, but the thing that I take heart in, there's this thing that we call the grace of office. So God doesn't ask you to do something that He doesn't give you what you need to do it. And I feel that grace every single day.
Do you feel like you're the general manager of the diocese?
Yeah, general manager. You know, it's certainly paid at a much reduced rate. But no, I am I'm someone who's called to be a bridge builder, to bring about unity. And that's hard given our individualistic society and a society that's very polarized, but it's something that excites me and invigorates me. I get up every day to do that.
Bishop, we appreciate your time. I know you're a sports fanatic. We appreciate the time, and certainly, you know, the Lord called you to do what you want to do, and I know everyone's very appreciative of that. And keep up the great work. Good luck with your Pittsburgh teams, except when they play Cleveland. And before we go, though, can you, through you know, the YouTube or whatever people are listening and watching, give us your blessings on the people?
I'd be honored to do that. And I just want to say, I'm honored to live in Youngstown and to be the Bishop of Youngstown. And one of the best experiences that I had, that I truly will cherish, was the blessing of the statue of Jackie Robinson and George Shuba down there at the Cavelli Center. And what a great message for our time and for our city and for our world. So may the peace and blessing of Almighty God, the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit come down upon you and be with you now and forever. Amen.
Thank you, Bishop. That wraps up this edition of The Score. Once again, we would like to thank the Most Reverend Bishop David J. Bonnar for joining us today. You could find The Score and other podcasts, 21 News podcasts, dropping every Thursday morning.